US President Trump has signed an order authorizing tariffs after vowing to impose dramatic taxes on goods from Canada, Mexico and China. And Canada has responded to it as well, saying that it will hit back at US tariffs with 25% levies on its own on select American goods.
This will include immediate tariffs on $30 billion worth of goods as of Tuesday, followed by further tariffs on $125 billion worth of American products in 21 days' time to allow Canadian companies and supply chains to seek to find alternatives.
Trudeau also urged citizens to choose products made in Canada instead of the US.
It might mean checking the labels at the supermarket and picking Canadian-made products. It might mean opting for Canadian rye over Kentucky bourbon, or foregoing Florida orange juice altogether. It might mean changing your summer vacation plans to stay here in Canada and explore the many national and provincial parks, historical sites, and tourist destinations our great country has to offer.
Trump signed 3 executive orders imposing tariffs of 25% on exports from Mexico and Canada, although energy resources from Canada will have a lower 10% levy. Goods from China, which already face various rates of duties, will see an additional 10% tariff. And goods from these 3 countries comprise more than 1/3 of imports into the US, including apparels, medicine, electronics and steel. Now, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says that Canada did not want this, but is prepared to respond to Trump's tariff announcement. He said he's already held meetings with his cabinet and will be speaking with President Sheinbaum of Mexico shortly also. A spokesperson of the Chinese Ministry of Commerce said that it firmly opposes new tariffs imposed on Beijing by US President Trump, vowing to take, quote-unquote, corresponding countermeasures to resolutely safeguard our own rights and interests. Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum said that she has ordered her economy minister to implement tariffs and non-tariff measures to defend her country's interests after the US slapped across-the-board duties of goods coming in from Mexico. In a lengthy post on social media, Sheinbaum stressed her government does not seek confrontation with its northern neighbor, but collaboration and dialogue. And Trump has declared a national emergency under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act to back these tariffs. In a post on social media, Trump said that it was his duty as the president of the US to ensure the safety of all, as he cited his campaign promise to stop what he called the flood of illegal aliens and drugs pouring across borders. All right, we're now being joined by Dr. Zachary Paquin from Geneva. He's a senior fellow at the Institute for Peace and Diplomacy and a research fellow at the Quincy Institute for Responsible Statecraft. Dr. Paquin, thank you so much for joining me here on the broadcast. Now, sir, before we go further into the details, what kind of a global impact do you see of these tariffs which are being imposed, starting with Canada, China and Mexico?
Well, this is not good for the United States, to be quite frank. I don't know what President Trump exactly has in mind, and I'm not simply talking about the economic cost this is going to have on American consumers. If you want to develop diplomatic relationships around the world, you need to have some degree of credibility and reliability, and basically communicating, even to your closest friends and allies like Canada, that they're going to face a 25% tariff as punishment, and there's basically nothing that they can do to avoid it, isn't exactly the best way to earn the admiration of other countries around the world. So in addition to being wrong-headed, this is just completely and outrageous, of course, as well. This is just not in America's national interest to be doing what President Trump is doing here. It's economically illiterate and it's wrong.
Dr. Paquin, in a way, you are echoing what China also said, that these tariffs, they are not really good for anyone. There is no winner in this trade war. So in what way does Trump seem to think that he's going to benefit from it when these tariffs are eventually bound to impact Americans themselves?
Presumably, President Trump is some kind of mercantilist here. He views economic relations as being either balanced or unbalanced based on the current account, just exports versus imports. And that's just not how it works. That's not how you determine whether an economic relationship is balanced or unbalanced. For example, President Trump has mentioned before that presumably the United States subsidizes Canada because Canada exports more to the United States than the United States exports to Canada. That's not how it works. Actually, our energy that America loves to gobble up, 60% of the oil that America imports comes from Canada, and they buy from us at a subsidized price. So, if anything, we subsidize them. Do they subsidize our continental defense to some extent? Yes. Does Canada have to be more serious about that? No question about it. We should not be taking our sovereignty for granted, and this should absolutely be a wake-up call for our political class across the border. Across both lines of the political aisle, excuse me. But nonetheless, that doesn't change how wrong-headed these are, and this is going to be working against America's national interest ultimately.
Dr. Pakin, as far as the European Union is concerned, if I'd request you to now focus solely on this region of the world, Trump has threatened tariffs on Europe as well. How do you feel the EU is going to respond? Will it take precautionary measures before these threats are put into action, or will it be retaliatory like Canada is now proposing to do?
I'm not privy to any debates that are going on within Brussels at the current time. We saw during the Trump 1.0 administration that basically the economic file is one area of the few in which the European Union is able to wield at least somewhat of a cudgel vis-a-vis the United States. But I'm not sure how they're going to respond this time.
Dr. Pakin, thank you so much for joining us here on the broadcast. Pleasure speaking with you. There will be more to discuss as Trump seems very, very clear that he wants to do what he said all through his election campaign as well. And he's put it into effect within 2 weeks of coming into the Oval Office. We'll get to know further. There'll be more to discuss. Pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you.